At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Jeffrey, congratulations to you, your organization, the coaches, the players. An amazing performance tonight. You started in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and you ended up at Super Bowl champions. Take the Vince Lombardi home to Philadelphia.
Hey, Eagles fans, this is Chris Franklin from NJ Advanced Media, and welcome to the No-Huddle Show podcast, the show where we discuss all things related to the Philadelphia Eagles. Before we begin, I want to remind you that you can read our content on NJ.com/Eagles and be sure to bookmark that to get the latest Eagles news and analysis. I also want to mention that this podcast is brought to you by Penco Tech. With 2 convenient campuses in Blackwood, New Jersey and Bristol, PA, Penco Tech has provided comprehensive, hands-on career training for more than 50 years, featuring programs in HVAC, electrical, plumbing, automotive technology, and more. With dedicated instructors and career placement assistants, Penco Tech can give you the skills and confidence to build a brighter future. Financial aid is available to those who qualify. Learn more and take the first step today at pencotech.edu. If you haven't heard by now, there will be a parade down Broad Street kicking off Friday at 11 a.m. to celebrate the Eagles dominating 40-22 rout of the Kansas City Chiefs to win their second Lombardi Trophy. And I'm going to be joined by Cayden Steele and Bob Brookover, 2 guys who are down there at the Super Bowl and covering it. Guys, how are you doing today?
Hey, Chris, we're back. We brought the Lombardi Trophy with us. The Eagles, we let the Eagles hold on to it, but we brought it back. I can't say I'm surprised. I expected him to win. I can say I'm surprised. I didn't expect him to win like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of us were. It was crazy. It was crazy. Cayden, how are you doing?
Doing good. Yeah, kind of agree with Bob. Kind of shocked by what happened a little bit to a degree. And look, now we're 4 weeks away from this thing kicking back up again with the off season. So really no breaks, coming with the Eagles here. They get to celebrate for a little while before having to turn the page again.
Yeah, that's one of the things about having a team that goes deep into playoffs is one time that quick turnover. You're like, okay, Super Bowl's over. And then the next thing you know is, oh, wait, draft coverage is about to start. You got the combine and everything. The Senior Bowl has already happened, and the East-West Shrine game, all those senior college all-star games. So it's crazy how quick it turns around, but we'll be here to give you everybody what they need and the information that they want. And we're actually going to start a little bit briefly with this Super Bowl you guys are at. And when we're looking at this, it was dominant. Nobody really foresaw this type of performance coming. I think at least anyway from our vantage points, what have you. Eagles amassed 345 total net yards compared to the Kansas City Chiefs 275 net yards. The Eagles defense was just dominant, and they got pressure with their front four. They held the Kansas City to 3 of 11 on third down conversions. They forced 3 turnovers. Patrick Mahomes didn't look like himself. It was just crazy. So I guess I'm going to start out with this question in terms of looking back at the game. Now that it's been a few days, and now you both have time to digest what happened, what surprised you the most about Sunday's win?
Yeah, I guess I'll start out. And Chris, you mentioned it in the opening as well. Just the fact that Patrick Mahomes didn't look like himself. Just from even the first drive where he wasn't sacked, they were applying pressure on him on the third down. Yeah, he had a rollout and he almost threw that interception to Isaiah Rodgers because he got pursued from the backside by Nolan Smith, and Jalen Carter got to him, and that was just the beginning. And it just continually got worse. And then the one drive, with Jalen, where Sweat gets the sack, and Sweat and Hunt combine for the sack, and then he throws the pick six. From that point on, he just never looked comfortable. And you haven't seen Patrick Mahomes get routed like that very often. To some degree, it doesn't surprise me necessarily that they were able to get a lot of pressure on him, because I think I talked about going into the game that the offensive line, there were some potential mismatches there. The fact that they had to move Joe Thuney over made a spot in the interior weak. And Joe Thuney, at the end of the day, is not a left tackle. He's a really good guard, but there's a reason he hasn't been a left tackle in the NFL because that's not the position he's best at. So getting pressure on Mahomes didn't surprise me, but the way he reacted to it, because yes, they did get pressure, but there were points where he was getting rid of the ball when the pressure wasn't even there. He ran into some sacks and into some big hits, and they just got into Mahomes' head, and you don't really see that. You could say it happened a little bit in that Tampa Bay game in the Super Bowl, 3 years ago. But this one was worse in my opinion. And then on the fact that Andy Reid, one of the best coaches of all time, great offensive mind, just didn't really have any adjustments. They didn't really establish the run. They didn't even really try to go to it. That surprised me a little bit. I thought they'd maybe try to get Pacheco going to kind of ease things for Mahomes. So the lack of adjustments for Reid and the way that the Eagles were able to kind of get into make Mahomes uncomfortable and get in his head and kind of just play like a version that we've not seen before. It's one of the worst games we've ever seen Patrick Mahomes play. But the Eagles' defensive line dominated from start to finish, and it was just the depth of players who contributed. I think was maybe the most surprising is Jalen Hurts. I know it only got a half a sack, but consistently providing pressure on Mahomes, playing really well against the run. Nolan Smith, Mora Joma, Milton Williams, on top of Jalen Carter and the rest of the guys. I mean, they just had so much depth on the defensive line. And now you see, why Howie Roseman builds it from the front, builds through the lines because they dominated and they got after the best quarterback in football, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and they made him look below average. So.
Nice. And one thing I felt that was kind of weird was, and I'll give full disclosure, I was sick on Sunday. I don't know if it was a stomach bug. I don't know if it was food poison or whatever. So I had a fever and other things going on. And so I'm watching this game and I'm like, I was like, is this a fever dream? Am I awake here? Like, I don't think like I'm ready. No. And then some other things happen. Like, no, I'm definitely awake. But you look at the severe dominance they had on them. It was crazy to see that. And I think the biggest thing that surprised me watching through all of this was the fact that there was no significant adjustments made by the Chiefs. I mean, we've heard it's almost like Andy went back to early, like Andy Reid of the early Eagles runs in the early 2000s, where he got pass happy. And you looked at like Kareem Hunt. Like, I know he's not Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry or what have you, but you should have at least just tried to establish the run. If that first series didn't go their way, try to establish it more, try to stretch them out, what have you, to try to keep them a little bit more balanced. It pretty much became predictable. Once the defense knows you're going 1, 2, 3, 5-step drop every single time, it just lets them pin their ears back. And there was no threats. There was no legitimate draw plays that were used against the Eagles defense. I think this fed more and more into it. And then just overall, you look at Steve Spagnuolo, who don't get me wrong, that is a tough offense to stop. It really is. But after, you need to get pressure some way. And you got front forward doing it. But the cover zero blitz at times, it was working sometimes, and you got them to flush it one way. But at least I think more often with this offense to try to stop the Eagles, you got to do delayed blitzes. Because a lot of times once they declare where they're going, is good luck. The Eagles front. Jalen Hurts can try to do that. But at least with a delayed blitz, they would have at least kept them back a few yards, have a linebacker back. And then if you saw Jalen Hurts leaving, then all of a sudden, bam, he goes to that. Why didn't Spagnuolo try to get a spot? Stuff like, there's so much stuff that I'm looking at. I put a lot of that. It was bad execution in a part of Mahomes. Kelsey, I saw that one play where, I don't know if you saw the penalty flag or whatever, but he just gave up in the middle of Travis Kelsey I'm talking about. Just gave up in the middle of the field. And it was just so many things. And DeAndre Hopkins with the drops, it was just so many execution plays. But a lot of that, I think, started with the preparation, the coaching for this game. I just think when you look at Nick Sirianni, Kellen Moore, I think they just flat out outcoached them. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, well, I'm with you. I was sick on Sunday too. I've been sick since last Friday, actually, Chris. I'm still not feeling too great. After the game on Sunday, on Monday, I pretty much just slept the entire day, just trying to recover. Felt so horrible, but I can tell you the remedy for being sick is not a cigar-filled locker room and waiting an hour and a half for that locker room to open, standing there waiting for it to open. but it was, we'll get to that scene a little bit in a little bit, but it was just a stunning day. The Chiefs did exactly what they set out to do. They were going to shut down Saquon Barkley. I think it was Chris Jones said that, Barkley ain't going for 150 yards. Nope, he didn't. 25 for 57. They stopped him 2.3 yards. Kenny Gainwell 6 for 10 yards. They stopped the running game, except for Jalen. Whenever Jalen had to run on third down and break their backs, he did. But he just tore them apart in other ways, and it wouldn't have mattered anyway because the defense was so dominant in so many different ways. Cayden alluded to this a little bit. One of the coolest things to me was the depth of the way the Eagles did this. You're concerned about Jake Elliott? All right. He's making every field goal he kicks, and sometimes he's making them twice because Rick Lovato might have been the only Eagle who had a bad day. He kept getting penalized. But he's making them from 48. He's making them. And just for good measure, his last kick of the season is from 50 yards. How about that? Jalen Hunt not only his pressure. Go back and look at Cooper DeJean's touchdown return. It's Jalen Hunt who just, I forget who it was, who just flattened on the return. Makes an incredible block to spring him free. Cooper had to beat somebody on his own at the 2-yard line or whatever. But what kind of script is that? There's two birthday guys. And Cooper ends up being the one who has the incredible birthday. Those two guys, Cooper and Quinyon, amazing all year. And to me, we all talk about the pressure and the sacks, which were great. But a big part of that was also just the coverage was incredible. Vic Fangio's game plan was incredible. I mean, there's so many great stories about this team. Vic is one. Kellen Moore's last game before he goes to New Orleans, he has the master plan. It was just endless things that went well for the Eagles. The only thing I really don't like is that the Chiefs got those 2 touchdowns late, because 40-22 doesn't even begin to tell the story. I mean, I could have lived at 40-14, but really it should have been 40-6 because they didn't do anything till this game was out of reach. It was 34-0 at one point. And Patrick Mahomes 21 for 32 and a 95.4 passer rating. No, I don't think so. That wasn't the game he played. I mean, they had 1 first down at halftime. This game was over at halftime. It was funny. I'm always writing at the Super Bowl when the halftime show going up, and of course I look up a little bit because I want to see it. Good halftime show, by the way. So I happened to look up just as it was ending, though, and the lights. We got the view from where we were sitting was of the Kansas City side of the field, and the lights in the stands. And this is Kansas City fans, mind you, holding. I guess they do something to be part of the show. But the lights read "Game Over," and I'm like, "Yep, it is."
That's a good old anecdote. That's cool. That's good. And I laugh at it. You mentioned Cooper DeJean. I laugh about that before the Eagles went down to New Orleans. And I think it was a Friday or Saturday, or I forget what day. But when the Lakers were in town, and LeBron went over to shake hands with the team and everything, and he acknowledged, talked to Devontae Smith, he talked to AJ Brown, but he kind of skipped over Cooper DeJean. I wonder if he's going to go next time he's in town. He's going to remember him now after what happened at the Super Bowl. That was pretty funny.
Remembering Cooper DeJean now. In fairness, he does look like he's 15 years old. I told you guys this story last week when we did our last podcast, but it was so great. Him and Quinyon, and Quinyon was sick on Thursday, I guess, too. But just talking to Cooper, so what did you and Quinyon talk about at the scouting combine? And he's like, "Oh, we didn't talk." Why didn't you talk? He got this one face that's really mean. He said, and I was scared of him. I didn't want to go. I was scared of that mean face. I talked to him. And I said to Quinyon, and I think Cooper was listening as I was talking because they were at the same table. I said, Quinyon, he says, he didn't talk to you because you have a mean face. He goes, he got the mean face. It's funny, those.
Waiting for the buddy cop movie between those two to come out. That's going to be fun. Yeah. Now getting back to Jalen Hurts, as we mentioned before, he had a really good game. Completed 77% of his passes, 17 of 22 for 221 yards, 2 touchdowns and that interception. And then he also had 11 carries for 72 yards and another touchdown in that. And we talked a little bit last week about when you looked at this game, what this game meant for Jalen Hurts, his legacy, and his ranking among his peers, their active peers that are in the NFL right now. Now, after this win, I'm going to ask this question again. Where do you guys place him among the active quarterbacks right now?
Yeah. I think it improved his ranking generally for a lot of people that, that doubted Jalen Hurts. I think a lot of people are moving him up. And I think it's fair. Has he always been the most consistent quarterback over the past 2 seasons? I would say no. But when it mattered the most this season, he played his best football. In the Commanders game, he was incredible. He was accurate. He made big-time throws. Same thing in Kansas City. This time it was even more impressive because we talk about how bad Kansas City played and how they didn't make any adjustments and all that. And Chris, you mentioned it a little bit already, but the best thing they did was shutting down Saquon Barkley. That was their game plan. It was to shut down Saquon Barkley and make Jalen Hurts throw. And Jalen Hurts did. The deep ball to Devontae Smith was beautiful. And outside, and the throw to Dotson down the sideline, the throw to AJ Brown to begin the game when he got called for the PI, which whether you want to debate whether that was PI or not. Jalen Hurts from the beginning to the end of that game was dialed in. He was really impressive. He was impressive in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. So he continues to show that he shows up in big games. He's been to 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. He has a Super Bowl, on his resume now. He wins a ton of football games. He's been in the playoffs every year as a starter. I think right now, if I had to take Jalen Hurts, I think coming into the year and during parts of this year, I wasn't sure if he was a definite top 10 quarterback. I think now I would say he's a definite top 10 quarterback. And if you want to make an argument that he's 5 or 6, I think I'm fine with that as well. I think I would still take the top 4 guys in Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar. I'd probably still take Stafford 5 just because of the experience. He's won a lot of football games too. He's won a Super Bowl. But I think right now I would slide Hurts into that number 6 spot. That's the 6th best quarterback in football. And look, he's 26 years old. So he's got even potential, more potential to get better and better and better. He plays great in big games, and he continually makes improvements as a passer. And not even just the passing element, but just some of the runs that he pulled off in that game. And when the play was dead and he was able to scramble and pick up some of those big first downs, Jalen Hurts was incredible in that game. And I think he earned a spot in the top 10 and maybe even the top 5 going forward.
Cool. Yeah, I think he's still a top 5 quarterback. I put him at number 4. And it's going to sound, this may sound sacrilegious, especially since this guy's being the reigning MVP right now, but I have him above Josh Allen. And the reason why I say that is because you look at the pressure situations and the wins, and I know I'm probably going to kick myself against my own argument, but a lot of those times when you look at that division, actually no, because this year with the Commanders, when you look at a lot of times when Josh Allen, even in the division that he plays, you get the Jets twice. I know the defense is good, but it's the Jets. You get the Dolphins, who have struggled, and you get the Patriots. And you can amass a lot of yards and a lot of wins that way. And so I think now, don't get me wrong. I look at what he did this year was really, really good. The fact that he was able to take that team to the AFC Championship game with the roster, like the receivers that he had and what have you. And James Cook's a good, decent running back, but what he was able to do to take him to the AFC Championship game was really good. But I still look at the amount of ways that in terms of the wins in the pressure situations, he just can't get over that hump. And you can blame Sean McDermott. Sometimes you can do that when it comes to Josh Allen. I just think right now, I think he's number 4. I still have, it's tough to say this even after this one, but I still have Mahomes as number 1, even after that performance. But I think Lamar Jackson's number 2 for me. I look at the way that he's been playing the same situation, but I look at the multiple MVPs and the overall body of what he's able to do. I think he's number 2. And I have Burrow number 3. And then I have to go Hurts. And even then, I start to look at it. I know Burrow puts up a lot of numbers, a lot of good numbers in a tough division. And I think he had a decent defense, which I thought was kind of funny, which he made fun of what's over again in the NFL Honors Awards. But if he had a better defense, yeah, I think maybe we probably would see Cincinnati back in the Super Bowl again, but they haven't done that. So I think Hurts has cemented himself as number 4 in that, and I think there's even more room to grow. It's scary that we look at his passing numbers. They didn't have to pass as much as they did. If they did pass numbers, what would they be at? And he brings a duality, and he just wins. So that's where I have him, man. What do you think, Bob?
I'm going above all of you. I'm going number 1. You know why? His team just won the Super Bowl. His team just won the Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson's the MVP. Yeah. How many Super Bowls he's been to? I think the Eagles played the Ravens this year. And statistically, if you look at that game, it's going to say Lamar Jackson played a better game. But go back and really watch the game. And I remember writing about it in the game review I did, 2 days after the game. When it was time to make plays to win the game, guess who made the plays? Guess who didn't? Yeah, that's right. Jalen Hurts made the plays. Josh Allen, I don't remember how well he played in his Super Bowl. That's right. He hasn't played in any. And I know, quarterbacks aren't everything, but we talk about them all the time like, they're the most important player on the field. And if you're the best, and if you're the most important player on the team and your team just won the Super Bowl by 70,000 points, 40-22, bullcrap. What happened last time? Who was the best player on the field the last time Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts met? Do you remember that game?
That was epic.
They fell apart after that, but Jalen was brilliant that day. Won the game in overtime, brought his team back. Joe Burrow and Jalen Hurts met for the first time this year, right? Who won? Who won that game? I remember asking. I remember asking Jalen that day, about beating Joe Burrow, and his answer was, "I've got a standard too." And then I asked him later in the year, "What's the standard? Winning." Well, yeah, that was my. I think that should be Jalen's nickname now. Actually, the Standard. I like that nickname, the Standard. Jared Goff, come on, man. No, he's not better than Jalen. I'm sorry. We got these rankings. I did this story before. It was my last story before doing the Super Bowl. The NFL.com has Jalen ranked as this, and this is after the season now, mind you, after the season as the 16th best quarterback in the league. Fox has him ranked as the 11th best quarterback in the league. And just took a real shot at him, like, he hasn't really proven anything yet. Well, yeah, he has now. What's he proven now? I'll give him maybe Patrick Mahomes, but not right now. Patrick obviously has a better resume. He's the only quarterback in the NFL with a better resume. Is there any other quarterback that's won multiple Super Bowls? I don't think so, right?
Not active.
What's that? Not active.
Not active now.
Not active. Jalen's been to 2, 1-1 now. So and the one he just won was over Patrick Mahomes. So you know what? For me right now, Jalen Hurts, best quarterback in football.
The one thing one name I didn't hear out of all of us, and I'm glad it wasn't even mentioned in the top 24. I'm sorry, and this is maybe sounds sacrilegious again. Justin Herbert. I mean, so many times we started here.
That's all Geno Smith mentioned above him. Come on.
Are you kidding? Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay.
The NFL rankings have. Listen to the guys the NFL rankings have mentioned above him. You ready?
Uh-huh.
Lamar Jackson won. This is from order there. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jared Goff, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Jaden Daniels. Now, Jaden Daniels had a terrific rookie year.
He's been good. Yeah.
And he's going to be really good. But, and people were just raved about him. Again, he wouldn't have beat Jalen once this year if Jalen hadn't been hurt in that game. But if you look at Jaden Daniels' year, it wasn't as good as Jalen Hurts' year. It just wasn't. He threw 9 interceptions. He's not the same player. Jalen does what it takes to win. Anyway, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Geno Smith at 10, Jordan Love at 11, please. Matthew Stafford 12, Brock Purdy 13. Look, what does Brock Purdy have to do? What does he have to do to prove he's better than Brock Purdy? Bryce Young 14, Kyler Murray 15, Jalen Hurts 16. Are you kidding me?
The Bryce Young one is the one that made me audibly laugh. Like, this guy got benched in the middle of the season.
Yeah,
I know he came back played well.
He had a good, a kind of comeback year, but it's mind-boggling. And if you do this same exercise with Nick Sirianni, you can also start to laugh at who people think are a better coach than he is.
All right, over-under on real quickly, over-under on how, if we have a Jason Kelsey type thing, is Jalen Hurts, who I don't know who's going to do it. Jalen Hurts was ranked 16th overall on this one. But yeah, it's whoever made that list. Yeah, good luck. That might come up a little bit later. Somebody might bring that up in terms of that.
Nick Shook. I'll tell you who it is. Nick Shook. I don't know who Nick Shook is, but
I don't know who that is either.
I don't know. He works for NJ.com though.
Yeah, you better hope he doesn't bring it up on a parade. Everybody will know him after that. Goodness. Now somebody
since 2014.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. I got nothing on that one. Somebody else who deserves a lot of credit for Super Bowl win is Kellen Moore, the Eagles offensive coordinator, who apparently now is not the offensive coordinator because the New Orleans Saints thought so. They officially hired him as their head coach. Technically I should say they're waiting to sign the dotted lines and all that stuff, filling out details. But in essence, he's going to be their head coach. And now the Eagles are going to have to search for his replacement, their third offensive coordinator in 3 seasons. Who's at the top of your list to take over for Moore as a new OC?
Yeah, this is going to be a difficult replacement. We saw what happened in 2023 when they lost Shane Steichen and Brian Johnson filled in. And it just didn't pan out. And then Kellen came in and the system kind of changed and the offense rebounded, especially the run game. The passing game got going later in the year. From a continuity standpoint, this really hurts. I wonder if, I've seen Kevin Patullo mention, and I think that's the obvious internal candidate. He's been Nick Sirianni's, partner, he's been, at his side everywhere. You would think that's a guy that Nick Sirianni is going to advocate for, but after what they saw happen in 2023 with Brian Johnson, you wonder if, is that something Howie Roseman and collectively, with Jeffrey Lurie as well, is that something they're going to feel comfortable with? But if they do go internal, I think it will be Kevin Patullo, even though really based off, he does have a lot of NFL experience, but in terms of just being a play caller, there's a lack of experience there. So that would make you a little bit worried. I think it would be better to go on the outside, personally, and find someone, either go with a veteran voice, who would be there for a long time. And maybe you don't want to go down this route because the system would be similar to what Sirianni ran when he came in, but maybe you do explore Frank Reich, because if you hire him and if he comes in and he has success, I doubt he ever gets hired to be a head coach again. So you would have that continuity, kind of similar to what you have with Vic Fangio now. Maybe he stays here 5, 6, 7 years. And I think that would be appealing. And obviously he's been here. So it would be something that I think Roseman and Lurie would be comfortable with as well. And I think the outside the box hire, and I'm not sure if you would want to leave, is I think you would call Josh McCown if you wanted to go the young route. A creative offensive mind who's been a part of Kevin O'Connell, part of the Sean McVay tree now of that offense. And if you want to bring something different and continue to be on, the up, to continue to be innovative like Jeffrey Lurie likes to be, I think Josh McCown would be intriguing. Obviously, he played here in 2019, so he knows the city as well. People rave about him. And you saw what they did with Sam Darnold in Minnesota this year. So I think he'd be an intriguing option. I really don't know what path they'll necessarily go down, but if I had to pick one right now, I'll go with Frank Reich. I don't feel great about it though. I'd probably go Frank Reich or Patullo, but I mean, if I had to choose, I would probably go down like the Josh McCown route.
Gotcha. What are you thinking, Bob?
Yeah, I'm going to say Kevin Patullo because I think, as Cayden pointed out, he's been his right-hand man. They've been together since 18 in Indianapolis when Frank Reich took over that job and brought both of those guys there, and they've kind of been hand in hand ever since then. And Nick brought Patullo with him from he wasn't allowed to bring very many guys from Indy when he left Indy. He made it clear that Frank said to him, this is my staff. You don't get to pick guys from my staff. And Patullo's been that guy. And I think he's going to end up being the guy for this reason, because I think he is Nick's guy. And Nick's never had more clout than he has right now. I mean, he's going to get a new contract. We're going to get into in a minute. But he's really got clout in terms of this too. He just won a Super Bowl. If this is the guy he wants and he wants to fight for him, I don't think the Eagles, I don't think Howie or Jeffrey is going to fight him on this. And, he will get his guy. Another name out there is Marcus Brady from the Chargers. He's the passing game coordinator. He also has familiarity with Nick and Frank Reich's system from their days in Indy. He was the guy who replaced Nick as the OC in Indy after Nick came to the Eagles. And I think him working with the Chargers is an interesting thing. And under Harbaugh this year is interesting because the Chargers, like the Eagles were this year, were, one of those run heavy, rely a lot on a great defense type team and offense. And that obviously is a method that works for the Eagles. So we could see that, if the Eagles decided they wanted to go with Frank Reich, how could that be an unpopular choice? This one, the last time he was here, he won a Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator. Now Doug was calling the plays, but he's proven in the past he knows how to call plays. The thing I like about a veteran guy is exactly what happened here with Vic Fangio this year. Best defensive coordinator in the NFL this year, had the number one defense in the league, and you don't have to worry about him leaving because he's 66 years old and people aren't clamoring to have 66-year-olds become their head coach. Maybe they should be more than we think. Of course, the old guy always likes the old guys. But there's some interesting names out there, but I'm going to be surprised if this doesn't become Kevin Patullo.
And I was making some calls yesterday around just to see if they get a pulse of what they're doing. Patullo's name definitely came up. Reich's name came up. And it's funny you mentioned Brady too. And all three of those actually have connections with Sirianni during that time as well too, because we know Patullo came over with him in Indy. Frank was the head coach when Nick was the offensive coordinator, and Brady was the offensive consultant when the Eagles went to the last Super Bowl in 2022. So they all do that. I also said, don't be surprised if they bring in a couple guys from the college ranks, which I'm thinking like, okay, and I'm trying to look around and see that. I'm not Lane Kiffin. Well, Lincoln Riley didn't get fired from USC. And we know that Howie has a good relationship with Lincoln Riley. He was the one that helped him in terms of he discussed with him back in 2021, I believe it was, or what have you, in that he made a call at least to see what's going on. And then now you also have the other person I would have thought that for the college rank at least would have got a call was Nick, who Nick was close with as well too, was Tommy Reese, but he's now in Cleveland. So those are eliminated. And so that's the problem. Like, all right, who in college? I'm like, I just don't know. GJ Kinney's too far away. He's said as much I think beforehand that he wants to remain at Texas State. He's one of those up and coming rising head coach types, but really offensive mind. And he was formerly with the Eagles, and he had a relationship with them beforehand too. So I think right now it is Patullo with the inside running. It has the inside track. He'll definitely get an interview in terms of that. I thought another guy I think as well too. When you look at who the Eagles hired before they went with Kellen Moore, Gerard Johnson. Now the thing that hurt him was C.J. Stroud regressed, and that Houston offense wasn't as dynamic as it was in 2023 as it was. It wasn't dynamic as it was in 2023 as it was in 2024. So I still think he gets an interview, but yeah, I can see it.
I think the Eagles would be smart too to maybe interview a good list of guys, and just at the very least you start getting some input into what other people think about. What direction the Eagles should go from here. So if I was them, I don't know if they'll do it this way, but if I was them, that's how I would do it. I would let's pick some guys' brains and see what they think about what we should do going forward.
Oh yeah, get the video camera go in the background and decide, okay, in this type of look, what would you do against that? If it so happens to be that, like, there's nobody on the Cowboys staff I'd even want to bring in for an interview, because I'd probably go like, okay, let's just see what Schottenheimer's going to do. Bring him in like, hey, who wants to come in? Nah, it's not going to happen. So like that.
Well,
But
wasn't there a player just in the – I forget you know who it was? It was the I found this to be fascinating. I can't – it's the Japanese pitcher who everybody wanted, ended up signing with the Dodgers. And he told like the 6 teams that were interested in him, well, you know, I need to work on improving, I think he said, the location of my fastball. So I'm going to need to hear your plan for how I can improve on locating my fastball, you know, before I make my decision. It's brilliant. So he's got 6 different opinions about how he can improve his fastball. So he can, you know, if one of them doesn't work, he can try another one. You know, that's how I would do everything.
Yeah. Intel's your best friend. Intel is always your best friend, and picking the brains of everybody who you're going to see. Yeah, it's not a bad option at all. Speaking of options, it's time for the run past option, where I'm going to ask Bob and Cayden if they're going to run with an idea, or if they disagree with it, or if they run with an idea, that means they agree with it and they explain why. If they pass on the idea, they explain why. They say that and give their reason why as well too. So I'm going to give you two questions, and the first one can be brief. Eagles and Chiefs will meet in the Super Bowl at least once in the next 2 years. Are you running or are you passing?
I'll run with it. I do think the Eagles and the Chiefs could be back, potentially. Especially, I think I'm more confident in the Eagles, which might sound a little crazy, but I do think the AFC is going to change up in the next few years. I envision Patrick Mahomes being back in Super Bowls and winning Super Bowls again. But I think there's going to be a little bit of a hard reset. I think there's a chance Travis Kelce retires, and it takes them a few years to get back. So, actually, sorry. Let me rephrase. I'll pass with it then. I don't think they'll meet each other again in 2 years. I think one of them could be back, but I think it'll be a different matchup. And I feel more confident in the Eagles being back than the Chiefs.
Oh, I'm also going to. You know, I'm going to run with it. You know why? Because I look at the AFC, and my concern on the Eagles side isn't that the Eagles aren't going to be good, because I do think they're going to be good. But I think the Commanders are a ascending team. You know, I was laughing. I was watching ESPN a little bit, and Dan Gacciano, who I used to, you know, cover with. We're going back to when the last time this happened. It is amazing that the Eagles in 2004 are the last team to repeat. They won 4 straight division titles, and nobody's won back-to-back division titles since. It's hard to imagine the Eagles not winning again next year, except for the Commanders are an ascending team. I still think they could be ripe to fall back a little bit next year, but they're an ascending. Regardless, they're an ascending team. Even if they fall back a little bit next year, I think they're a team with Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels that are on the rise. You know. I'm going to be really surprised if Detroit doesn't come back with a real, you know, just a drive to complete. You know, I think they thought for most of this season that this was their season, that this was going to be their magical year to finally get to the Super Bowl as an organization. I think you're going to see a real drive from that team. The Vikings and Packers, I still think, are very good teams. The Packers especially are very young. You know, Tampa's tough to say because I'm not really sold on Baker being their guy that can get them there. I really like Todd Bowles a lot, but I still think they have some issues in other places. But I do still think that the Rams are a team. You know, that Matt Stafford's got a year or two left in him in that window, and you also got to see how San Francisco bounces back. So I think the Eagles are going to be really good, but I think. And I thought the NFC was the better conference this year. Maybe the most impressive thing about the Eagles' run is that they had to go through the tougher conference. They had to go through 4 games. You know, might have things turned out differently if they had to go to Detroit. I don't think so, because I think by the end of the year, Detroit was too banged up and they're a better team. But Detroit and Philadelphia head to head as healthy teams, that's an interesting matchup. Whereas when you look at the AFC, I would say probably the Chargers are sending in the Chargers in Denver. It's that's the one thing about Kansas City. Their division is really getting better. The rest of this AFC, though, Baltimore's good, but they don't. They never seem to be able to finish what they got to do. Can Cleveland bounce? Cincinnati bounce back? Yeah, Joe Burrow's very good. And Buffalo's still trying to finish, but never seems to be able to do it. The rest of the AFC East, Baltimore, very good, like as we mentioned. Pittsburgh, I'm just not sold on either one of those quarterbacks right now. Yeah, I could see it happening, see these teams meeting again, but from the Eagles' standpoint, it's going to be really hard to get through that NFC every year. So we'll see. And what did I say? What's my options? Run or pass? Let's pass on the teams actually meeting each other. I can see the Eagles getting back there the next year. It's just not lining up. I can see either one of those teams getting back in the next 2 years, but maybe not the other one joining them. But they're both still Super Bowl contenders coming back next year.
Cool. Well, I'll insert this real quick. I think they're going to. If I was playing, I'd run. I think it's going to be 2 years, not next year, but I think it's going to be 2 years. I think the Ravens are getting there next year. I don't know why. I just got this gut, but Ravens I think might be that one too. The other one. Here's the second run pass option question. We all know with the success Nick Sirianni has had and what he's done, his extension will be in the range of $17 million to $21 million, making him one of the league's top 5 highest paid coaches. Are you running or are you passing?
I'll start this one, Craig. Yeah. I'm going to run with that because Andy Reid, I believe, is at the top of that scale right now at $20 million. Mm-hmm. He just beat Andy Reid. So you got to think that's what he's looking for. How about the timing for Nick Sirianni? Could it be any more perfect? You're nearing the end of your contract. It's time to get renewed. You win a Super Bowl. You've been to 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. If his next deal isn't in the $20 million range, I think he should be looking for Drew Rosenhaus to become his agent, because they say it's all about winning. And say what you want about Nick and his crazy antics sometimes, and his rambling press conferences sometimes. The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the record. Pay me, man. Pay the man. Pay the man.
Nice. What do you got, Kay? You running or you passing?
Yeah, I'll run off it too. I won't add much to it. He deserves it. He's been 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls. He's made the playoffs every year. And look, you could talk about how the end of last year ended and how much he was at fault at that, but he bounced back. He had the 2 coordinators in here this year, which I'm sure helped. But this team was locked in. They seemed very focused during the Super Bowl week. And there's times where I think a lot of people try to discredit Nick Sirianni, but you can't deny the wins. You can't deny that he has a Super Bowl championship now, and he's been to 2. He deserves to be paid that much, and he'll probably get it. So that's I don't think it's a question of if. It's just a matter of when.
Now it's time for the 2-minute drill, where each of these guys will have 2 minutes to answer a question. If they don't finish in time, they'll hear this whistle, meaning that they'll have to pick up all the trash from the beer cans along with the parade route, and they'll be shamed for doing that. Now, today's 2-minute question, and I'll start with you, Cayden, on this one. Some analysts believe the Eagles could follow the Chiefs' path and build their own dynasty, given their young roster and several key players under contract for at least 2 more seasons. The Eagles have now been to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years and have won 1. What do they need to do to be considered a dynasty, and will they become one? Your time starts now.
To be considered a dynasty is tough, but I think because they've been to 2 of the last 3, I think if they go back next year and they win 2 in a row, they've been to 3 of the last 4, I think people will start to put that dynasty label on them. I don't know if it would be like an official dynasty, but it'd be close to getting one. I think if they win, another one a year or 2 after that, then I think it will be an official dynasty. But to get there is not going to be easy. Bob mentioned the NFC is a more difficult division. The AFC's got better quarterbacks, but I think the NFC has better teams in terms of just, 1 through 53, defense, offense. So it's not going to be easy. The number 1 step is they're going to have to nailed the offensive coordinator hire. We saw what happened in 2023 with Brian Johnson when they didn't get it right. And they don't get it right this season, whether it's Kevin Patullo or Frank Reich or whoever it is, and the offense struggles next year and they have a hard time, they're probably not going to get back to the Super Bowl, which would probably eliminate them from the dynasty conversation. They have to stay healthy. The Eagles really avoided any major injuries this year other than Nakobe Dean. It's not going to be like that every single year. So they have to stay healthy. They have to nail their offense coordinator hire, and they have to keep drafting well. And Howie Roseman has, and that's the one I feel confident in. It's just keep getting younger and younger and younger, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think if they keep doing that, they'll have a good chance of becoming a dynasty. They could make a trade for like a guy like Myles Garrett as well to help that cause this offseason. So there's a lot of different ways they can do it. But I think the number one important thing is they stay healthy, they nail the offensive coordinator hire, and they keep drafting well.
15 seconds left. No trash duty for you. Congratulations. You get to do that. All right, Bob. Same question going to you. What do they need to do to be considered a dynasty, and will they become one? Your time starts now.
No, it was my morning subject after the Super Bowl. And yeah, I do think they can become a dynasty. I think they almost are really one if they were able to win back-to-back, if they were able to go back there next year and win another Super Bowl. At that point, they've won 3 in 9 years and been to 4 in 9 years. And some people will take away from it because the 3 in the last 4 years would be with Jalen, a quarterback, and Nick as coach, whereas it was Doug and Nick / Carson Wentz, but I still think as an organization, when you win 3 in 9 years and go to 4 in 9 years, organizationally, you're on the border of being a dynasty. In order for them to happen, win next year, you need this defense to continue to be great, and I can see that happen. The biggest reason I can see it happen. Jalen mentioned this a few times through the course of the season, and as he did, it kind of struck me. He's got a great point. And you go back and look at it. These Georgia guys that Jalen kept saying were such an influence on this team. They took down the Alabama dynasty when they were in college, and then went back the next year and were even more dominant, allowed 10 points per game. Well, if you didn't see that in this defense, people see this Seattle defense that took down Manning in that Super Bowl. You can see that in this Eagles team. And as long as you have that dominant defense, you have a chance to win every year. These guys won back-to-back in college. I could see them doing it in the NFL. They're that special, this group.
4 seconds left. Bravo. I mean, I'm proud right now of you guys. We were able to get both of them in under 2 minutes. I'm so proud right now.
Mark, man, we hit it. You give us a mark. Stand there, we'll stand there.
Oh, goodness. Better time management than Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. Anywho, final question is
he managed time fine. He just couldn't make time go fast. He wanted time to go faster on Sunday.
Oh, goodness.
I can't believe he called that timeout in the fourth quarter, which drew a nice boo from the crowd.
Yeah.
He's like, Andy, come on.
Just like, unless you want to try to get your young guys experience, there's no cause for that.
This is saying something for you. That was your worst use of a timeout in your life. And that's really saying something.
All right. We're calling excessive roughness on that one. Oh, boy. I just wanted to push the whistle button again.
That was Jalen hands to the face, not getting called on Milton Williams strip sack.
Oh, yeah, that's 2. Oh, we ain't getting to officiating. Yeah, that was kind of bad, too. All right, here's the final question for today's show, and we want to thank everybody again for listening to this show brought to you by Pinco Tech. Here's today's overtime question. You guys had a chance to be in that locker room after the win. Were there any moments that stood out to you guys?
Go ahead, Cayden. Go ahead.
Any specific moments? I guess the one that stood out to me is of all the players in that locker room, The one that seemed to be getting the most embraced was Brandon Graham, which could point to maybe, that this was BG's last game. He didn't say, after the game whether he was retiring or not. He said he wasn't there yet, but sure acted like a guy that was processing this, potentially being his last game. I thought, because of the injury, and if he weren't able to come back in the Super Bowl, which it did seem like for most of the year he'd be able to do, that he would maybe come back for a 16th year and not want to go out the way he did. But the fact that he was able to go in that game, even at one point got some pressure on Mahomes, was able to win a Super Bowl ring. Everyone was embracing each other after that game. So it's not saying anything crazy, but it seemed like there was a little something extra for BG. You saw the way Nolan Smith, in the video now that's gone viral, got around him. It seemed like it was a little bit extra. That obviously they wanted to win it for him. They talked about it during the season. And I think there's a good chance that was the last game we saw of Brandon Graham.
Yes, the two of them, between Brandon Graham and Nolan Smith, they built a bond over these last few seasons, and you're starting to see it. It's almost like you're seeing a mini me of Brandon Graham starting to develop before our eyes. And that was a cool scene to see that from afar and seeing everything going on. Bob, what were something that stood out? What's the things that stood out to you?
I'm going to take you back to the locker room in Los Angeles after Brandon got hurt, and I was the only one on that trip. And it's weird. You guys both know working in the locker room by yourself is different than when you got people, because we can talk about, okay, you go do this, you go do that, and like I didn't really know what to do that day. Like there were so many things to write about. And, Saquon had rushed for 3,780 yards in that game and really broken their back. But then Brandon, out of the blue, and it was really a weird scene. We went to Brandon, and it wasn't really obvious that he was hurt that bad, because by the time it happened, the game was kind of out of control. The Eagles had put the game away. So we were all writing, and we went downstairs, and I think, he said, "I'm done for the year." And Jimmy Kempski from Philly Voice was like, "No, you're joking, right?" He goes, "No, I'm serious." He goes, "You're joking, right?" And he goes, "No, I'm serious." It was a very odd scene. But instead of going to Saquon, for some reason that day, I like, you know what? I'm going to make my focus just talking to the guys in this locker room about Brandon's season being over. And I went to Nolan Smith, and he was like, "Yeah, we're gonna keep going for this guy. We're gonna win this thing for this guy." And Jalen Carter talking about, there's no more important man in my life than BG, and how much he meant to him. Reed Blankenship, I remember saying, "I hope someday I can tell my kids that I played with Brandon Graham and how special he was." And then to juxtapose that against the scene Sunday night in the locker room that Cayden just described, but also there was also a moment where he was kind of dirty dancing with Howie Roseman. That was funny. that was very funny. I was like, oh my God, those two were so happy together. He was so happy. Howie was so happy for BG, and just see him that happy, because he is a really good guy, and to know that scene that I saw, whatever it was, 11 weeks earlier, and thinking the guy's season, maybe career, was over, to this Super Bowl celebration locker room. It was quite a thing to see. That things could turn that quickly in those 11 weeks. And a testament to him that, he didn't just say, "Hey, I'm not going to keep working out. I'm going to keep myself in shape." He didn't have to do that. He didn't have anything to prove in this career. And, he did. And he went out and he made some plays too. He made a few plays. It wasn't like he just was out there just coasting. And, that was the whole thing about this season. A lot of people thought, oh, this is going to be his retirement tour. And Vic told him early on, he goes, "This ain't your retirement tour. I want you to play." And when he got hurt, he was playing at an incredible level. So yeah, that was cool.
Thank you very much for giving me the image and something to hear in the background. I had the time of my life. And all of a sudden, you have Howie Roseman and Brandon Graham dancing. Thank you very much for giving me that image. I appreciate that. But nah, you're right.
Brandon jumped into Howie's arms.
Oh, my gosh.
This arm spread.
Oh, goodness. But nah, like I think everybody knows this. And if the announcement ever does come that he retires, we'll definitely get into it a lot more. But I think everybody knows, like, when you talk to BG, he's a different cat, and that's different in a good way. It's just fun, and to see him do that stuff and to be able to come back, it's just, I still don't know how he's able to come back and withstand chips too, because that's how he heard towards tries. Like you say, he got chipped, and it stood up to that. So it was crazy to see that. But that's the end of today's show. I want to thank you all for listening very much. I want to also thank Bob and Cayden for joining me too. Even though the season is done, we're not done here at NJ.com. We'll continue to give you the coverage leading up to from the parade on Friday to the draft, to free agency, to the extensions, to possible retirements, what have you. We'll have it all here available for you on NJ.com/Eagles. So for Cayden Steele and Bob Brookover, I'm Chris Franklin. Everybody have a good one. See ya. The No-Huddle Show podcast is brought to you by Penco Tech. With 2 convenient campuses in Blackwood, New Jersey and Bristol, PA, Penco Tech has provided comprehensive hands-on career training for more than 50 years, featuring programs in HVAC, electrical, plumbing, automotive technology, and more. With dedicated instructors and career placement assistants, Penco Tech can give you the skills and confidence to build a brighter future. Financial aid is available to those who qualify. Learn more and take the first step today at pencotech.edu. That's PENNCOTECH.edu.